old magazines. They had a lot to say about the old video games we used to play. But how relevant or accurate were the articles, especially when they felt like they knew and had all the scoops back in the day? And let's look at this in retrospect, now that we're in modern times and know the gaming industry a lot better, now that all of these stories has played out. Now, I'm Magnus, welcome to my channel, and in this channel I like to talk about old games, nostalgic games that come back to life, and reliving the past, but gaming in general. And this time, we're not talking about Shenmue, which is all up in this cover right now. We're gonna actually talk about a little article up on the top left of the magazine that says Half-Life. Now, Half-Life was going to come out on the Sega Dreamcast, but however, after the Dreamcast was discontinued, Half-Life never actually came out to the Sega Dreamcast. Instead, I believe it came out on the Sony PlayStation 2. But in this article that was written here, Dreamcast Magazine had an exclusive on multiplayer in Half-Life on the Dreamcast, which was a topic that was talked about a lot back in the days. See, if you don't know what Half-Life is a great single-player campaign story that's first-person shooter and really revolutionized storytelling in a first-person shooter like no other game before it. Now, it was released on PC first, but Dreamcast was going to receive a port with higher polygon counts, better graphics, everything compared to what the PC could handle at the time. So this exclusive port on the Dreamcast was going to be amazing. And one of the things that it also did well was actually have multiplayer campaigns where you can actually play against others online. Now, Half-Life didn't create it, but Half-Life and its Counter-Strike games and its other mods that you can play multiplayer were a huge success for Half-Life. And they were actually going to be on the Dreamcast until rumors started that they weren't going to be on the Dreamcast. And there was a lot of confusion because people were wondering, will it have multiplayer or will it not have multiplayer? Well, in this article, they discuss what the multiplayer fate of Half-Life was supposed to be. And then we'll talk about how it really turned out. So let's go over and review this article. Gotta love these little, send in these subscriptions and you can save money on a Dreamcast Magazine. Anyway, flipping forward, I'll read a little bit and then we'll kind of get into it. So there it is, the spread for Half-Life on the Dreamcast Magazine. Dreamcast Magazine was somewhat biased, I would think, but the article starts, prepare yourself for the ultimate multiplayer Dreamcast experience. It was written by Evan Shamoon and the photos were by Michael Sexton. For the past several months, rumors concerning Sierra's exclusion of multiplayer elements from the Dreamcast version of Half-Life have besieged the internet like a swarm of angry fanboys. Fanboys. Even back then, fanboys were huge. Word has it that corporate pressure would force the game out in time for the Christmas buying season, and that multiplayer gaming was to be the resulting casualty. So determined to set the story straight, we used our mad transportation skills to beam directly into the headquarters of Gearbox Software in Plano, Texas, home to the creators of Half-Life, and to the only fishing tackle box manufacturing plant in America. It's funny that these articles from back in the day tried to be funny as humorous as possible, but sometimes they were cringeworthy. Let's continue. Armed with nothing but a mini recorder, a digital camera, and our trusty ODCM cattle prod, in case of cows, we infiltrated the heavily guarded Gearbox headquarters and came back with an exclusive report from the front lines. Who writes this stuff? Why were people I was not. I always cringed when I read stuff like that. Like a box of Raisin Bran, this report contains not one but two scoops of chewy goodness. Scoop 1. The game will be released in two separate packages. The first, due for release this November, will include a graphically enhanced version of Half-Life, as well as an entirely new adventure entitled Blue Shift, developed specifically for Dreamcast. Scoop 2, shortly thereafter, January of 2001-ish, Sierra will release a separate multiplayer game which will include Opposing Force, Team Fortress 1.5, Half-Life multiplayer, and possibly even Counter-Strike. What does it mean? Clear the lane, suckers. Well, in hindsight, did any of that really happen? Well, there was a Dreamcast developed port of Half-Life. However, Half-Life never released on the Dreamcast, though it was developed, pretty much done. and that's because of the declining sales of the Dreamcast. It didn't make any financial sense to publish a game that would eventually be on a dying system. And what about the multiplayer version of Half-Life? Well, that never came to pass. And even the original Half-Life game, since it was never released on the Dreamcast, you could say that never came to pass too, although versions of Half-Life have been leaked online, so you could still download a burnable version of Half-Life and play it on the Dreamcast, and it runs pretty well. I've actually played it, and it's a really good catch. Did they have the scoop? Apparently not, because none of this came to pass, and I've never seen, although it could exist out there somewhere, I've personally never seen any multiplayer of Half-Life. So, should you really buy what they say? So let's continue with the article. Here you have them say, get a Half-Life. In the history of electronic entertainment, few games have collected as many helplessly devoted fans as Half-Life. The title has won well over 50 Game of the Year awards from both the press and the game development community, and has been hailed by the industry's judge and jury, PC Gamer, as best PC game ever. If you check out online gaming statistics, you'll find that multiplayer in Half-Life, in all of its variants, is played more than Quake 3, Unreal Tournament, and Tribes 2 combined. And that's almost 2 years after its initial release. This is what's coming to Dreamcast, and it's coming in a really big way. It never came to Dreamcast, as I said. Now, the article does have a lot of interesting pictures and stories on how Team Fortress and Opposing Force and Blue Shift will all be features that were added to the Sega Dreamcast. However, like I said, none of it came to pass, and a lot of work was done. They even featured like polygon representations in the article on what the PC version looked like and compared it to the Dreamcast version. And it's pretty intense. And it seems that they had every intention of bringing it to the Sega Dreamcast. This story basically concludes with a lot of pages, and it even includes pretty much discussion on its multiplayer content that it's supposed to have. Now let's read about that multiplayer content that it supposedly was supposed to have. For the past several months, we had been hearing word that Sierra was planning to axe the multiplayer elements of Dreamcast Half-Life. The rumors had us worried. While Half-Life was originally conceived as a story-based single-player experience, the online elements have since become absolutely essential gaming. Easily one of the most fun, rewarding, and exhilarating experience you can have online without breaking any of those pesky age of consent laws. So after signing our lives away on the dotted line of Sierra's non-disclosure agreement, we got the dish, which actually turned out to be more like a 5-course meal. As mentioned before, the second package will include Gearbox's own award-winning expansion pack, Opposing Force, the hugely popular online mod Team Fortress Classic, and Half-Life's original multiplayer elements. For in-depth descriptions, see the Progeny sidebar on page 44. The game will incorporate the recently released version of Valve's updated online code, which enables gamers with a 56K connection, read Dreamcast owners, to play the game smoothly over the internet, especially for those gamers using SegaNet. Valve's own Doug Lombardi tells us the online experience will be excellent. The team expects to include support for broadband as well, assuming Sega gives them something to work with. What does it all mean? Well, it means that once we've spent our respective winter breaks playing through the single-player Half-Life missions, we'll be graced with more Half-Life multiplayer madness than we'll know what to do with. Let the games begin. Yes, let the games begin and end. Because as we all know, the end of the 2000s and early 2001 wasn't a great time to be a Dreamcast owner, because none of these promises, none of these articles ever materialized. So it's sad to see that the Dreamcast had an end like it did, and it's sad to see that Half-Life never really got an official release on the Sega Dreamcast. Now, I did mention that it's been leaked online, and though I don't have the actual sources to find it, downloaded, and played on the original Dreamcast, I can tell you that I did once find them, and I still have that, and the single-player experience is actually pretty good and runs pretty well on the Sega Dreamcast. It's unfortunate that we never got anything more than that. But it's interesting to see what actually becomes of articles when we know the full story. I'll probably do more of these type of magazine reviews and maybe even talk about Shenmue the next time. that we do one of these videos. But what do you guys think of Half-Life? Do you think that it should have gotten a Sega Dreamcast release? Do you think the PlayStation 2 version did any justice to what could have been on the Sega Dreamcast? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, you can like, share, and make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. See you guys next time.